life as it was stopped the day that I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. And I know people use the word journey, but I guess that's really what it is. And it's a matter of, over time, learning to manage the side effects of the drugs that you're on. Your whole life changes. You might be a very busy woman, you might be working, you might have children, and you no longer find that you're able to do the things that you used to be able to do. And especially if you're very independent, you have to ask for help, which I find hard, and I'm sure a lot of women would find hard to do. You get tired, you get very tired. Fatigue is a big part of having metastatic breast cancer, and it's learning to manage that fatigue. You can't always do what you want to do when you want to do it. The disease has a big impact in that it doesn't dictate what you do, but it's a big part of life.
I don't think any aspect of my life is the same as what it was before. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting perhaps the treatment would have been initially a bit more drastic than what it was. And I learnt that the way they treat early breast cancer and secondary breast cancer is quite different. So they're more aggressive with their treatment of early breast cancer. And secondary breast cancer, they just try and it's all about quality of life and prolonging your life, so it's not as aggressive.
After the diagnosis, I realised how important life is, how important today is, how important this minute is. So over time, over the past few years, I have changed my whole attitude, my perspective on myself and my life around me. Things that were important to me before are not important to me now. Things that weren't important to me before are important to me now.
I suppose the biggest thing is that I've decided not to work anymore. And I used to work 2 jobs as a community health nurse and also teaching nursing at the local university. So I was the primary breadwinner in our family, and I always felt the stress of trying to provide for the family. So I think that's been a good thing for me to change the way I live my life. I find it much easier to focus on what is really important to me. When you sort of sit down and you say, okay, if my time is limited, I want to spend my time well. What do I want to do? I want to spend time with my girls and my husband. I want to travel. I want to be doing good things that make me feel good and that, spreads a little goodness in the world. So being a nurse was a very central part of my personality, and I've managed to find a few voluntary roles to kind of fulfill that need where I feel I'm doing good for others.
So my work were very supportive. I work in a sort of large global organisation. As soon as I sort of underwent treatment, they supported me the whole way. I sort of had extended sick leave, flexible working arrangements where if I was recovering from, for example, when I was recovering from my surgery, I could work from home for that period of time. Once I could log back on, I stayed at home and worked at home for a couple of weeks rather than going into the office. So my work has been fantastic. So that's helped the financial side of things because it's expensive being sick. So they've been good.
Fortunately, I was retired, and that made a big difference. Some women must find it extremely hard if they're in a 5-day week job. They have a different set of issues, as do women who have young children or teenage children. In fact, it's probably a little bit easier for us to deal with on a day-to-day situation, that we only have to worry about ourselves, and I don't have to worry about school drop-offs or pickups and getting a meal on the table, which other women must find extremely hard.
I'm still working while I've got metastatic breast cancer, and that's my choice. A lot of people say, oh, why are you working, But it makes me who I am. It gives me purpose. I really enjoy what I do, and I'm lucky I've got a really good employer and who can deal with times when I'm not well. It is quite expensive. A lot of things can be put through Medicare, or some things can, some things can't. But we're dealing with it as we're going along. If treatment needs to be done, that just needs to be done. My husband and I are still both working, so we're able to afford things like that.
Initially, my relationship with my husband was very strained. I think, particularly as the breadwinner in the family, or the main breadwinner in the family, I felt such a responsibility to continue looking after the family financially. It brought up a whole lot of other issues that probably were just kind of background issues in our relationship initially, that we actually needed to work through. And that's been a really positive kind of growing experience for our relationship.
My relationship with my partner, it was initially very, very, very good. He was and continues to be very supportive. You know, that sort of flight or fight response, we went into fight and we just sort of went through all the treatment, came out the other side, and then I had my ovaries removed, and I think by then I was starting to get tired, and then I had the hormonal impact. My emotional stability was a bit all over the place. Sex drive sort of went out the window. And these are the sorts of things that people don't want to talk about as well. I get that. So that created a lot of issues between us, that we had other things going on as well. And so I'm not going to say in any way that the reason the relationship ended is because of the cancer, because I don't think that was the only thing, but it definitely impacted it, and it definitely didn't impact it in a good way.
What I did find out was some friends stepped up and some friends stepped back. And I think that was to do with the fact that they were unable to deal with my diagnosis. And people who I least expected it to came to my aid and helped me.
It's much easier to think about it as a chronic illness, because it's not that I'm dying with this. I'm not dying. I'm living. I'm living with this, and I'm going to continue to live with this until I've got no other option. And then that's the same as what anybody else can do.